April 16th, 1944. Yuma, Arizona. The desert heat shimmers above the rail tracks as a long line of olive-drab freight cars screeches to a halt. Dust rolls across the platform like smoke. Inside, behind barred windows, the faces of captured Kriegsmarine sailors press against the glass, pale, exhausted, and blinking against the blinding American sun. "Willkommen in America," one US guard mutters dryly, slinging his M1 Garand over his shoulder. The Germans, captured off the Atlantic coast only weeks earlier, had expected to be taken to some coastal stockade, maybe New York, maybe Norfolk. But this? A barren expanse of cactus and sun-baked sand? They shuffle down the ramp under the watchful eyes of MPs from the 390th Military Police Battalion. Corporal James Hanley, just 22, squints toward the horizon where something massive gleams in the distance. Cranes, scaffolds, and steel skeletons rising from the desert floor. The faint clang of hammers echoes on the hot wind. The German lieutenant at the head of the column, Leutnant zur See Otto Faber, whispers to his comrade, "Das ist unmöglich. Das Meer ist hunderte Kilometer entfernt." Impossible, he says. The sea is hundreds of miles away. Yet as they are loaded onto military trucks heading north along the Colorado River, the mirage becomes real. Vast ship hulls, Liberty and Victory ships, sit on dry land, their grey forms towering like mountains of iron. Sparks rain from welders' torches. Massive gantries roll along tracks, hoisting sections of hull into place as if assembling toys. The convoy passes a sign painted in bold blue. Kaiser Shipyards, River Division. Inside the truck, Faber and his men fall silent. The rhythmic pounding of rivet guns mingles with the roar of diesel cranes. It sounds to them like a mechanical thunderstorm, a Stahlwald, a forest of steel. What they are seeing defies everything they know about naval engineering. How could ships of war be built in the middle of the desert? That question, and the stunned faces of those prisoners, would mark one of the most surreal encounters of the war's industrial front. The trucks grind to a halt at a security gate marked US Maritime Commission, restricted area. Armed guards wave them through, and the German sailors, still in their tattered Navy uniforms, are ordered to disembark. Before them sprawls an industrial city born from the desert, colossal sheds, towering cranes, conveyor belts snaking through skeletons of steel hulls. The air is thick with the smell of hot metal and oil. A dozen half-built ships sit on massive wooden cradles, their prows pointing toward the distant river. One of the guards, Sergeant Raymond Cook, smirks as he notices the Germans staring. "Not quite what you expected, huh, boys?" he says, lighting a cigarette. Lieutenant Faber doesn't reply. His gaze locks on a series of Liberty ships, identical, grey, and bristling with scaffolding. Welders in leather aprons swarm across their surfaces like ants. Sheets of pre-cut steel slide down rollers from the assembly line, each stamped with serial numbers. The workers, men and women both, move with precision and speed that borders on choreography. "Unfassbar," Faber murmurs again. "Unbelievable." Nearby, a foreman in a hard hat barks orders through a loudspeaker. "Section 12 ready for transfer. Hull 343 on the move." Moments later, a massive hull section, weighing more than 80 tons, dangles from a crane, swinging toward a waiting framework. To the Germans, it looks like something out of a fever dream. In Hamburg or Kiel, a single vessel could take a year to complete. Here, they're told, a ship can be assembled in weeks. "Hundreds of miles from the ocean," Faber whispers. And yet, they launch them. The answer comes when a deep horn bellows from the river's edge. Workers cheer as a completed Liberty ship slides down its ways, hitting the Colorado River with a towering splash. Water surges, sunlight glinting off the ship's newly painted hull. SS William Mulholland. The crowd applauds. Women in bandanas wipe their faces, smiling with pride. A banner unfurls, built by the hands that will win the war. For the German POWs, the sight is shattering. Their world, one built on the notion of German engineering supremacy, seems to crumble right there in the desert heat. Faber clenches his fists. "They build faster than we can sink them," he mutters. His men, silent, know he's right. The convoy moves on, deeper into the steel forest. Everywhere, signs of Henry J. Kaiser's vision dominate. Prefabricated panels stacked like dominoes. Welding crews working 24-hour shifts, and entire sections of ships being lowered into dry docks built along the river. Each spark that flies from the welders' torches seems to ignite something larger. The realization that America's true weapon isn't just firepower, it's production. To the German prisoners, this is not a shipyard, it's an industrial miracle. And for the Allies, it is proof that geography no longer limits war. The ocean, it seems, can begin in the desert. April 18th, coasting along the Colorado River near Blythe, California. By the third day, the prisoners have grown quieter. The shock of their first sight has given way to disbelief and, in some, reluctant admiration. The convoy now rolls past the heart of Kaiser's inland complex, the Maritime Commission Yard No. 3, one of several facilities straddling the Arizona-California border. Built with the single-minded purpose of producing Liberty and Victory ships, faster than any navy in history could destroy them. A civilian engineer named Ralph Danner, assigned as their English-speaking escort, notices the Germans' fascination. He gestures toward this endless hum of machinery. "You're looking at the new front line," he says proudly. "Steel instead of soldiers." Faber frowns, uncertain if the man is mocking him. Danner continues anyway. "These ships roll out section by section, like automobiles. Each hull plate's pre-measured, punched and welded into blocks. Then the blocks are joined into hulls. No rivets, no wasted motion. Henry Kaiser figured out how to build ships like Ford builds cars." Faber doesn't answer, but his eyes betray his thoughts. In his homeland, German yards like Blohm and Voss or Kiel's Havelswerk still rely on craftsmen, master riveters, fitters, machinists, working meticulously by hand. Each ship a masterpiece. But here, in this strange American wasteland, ships are not crafted. They are manufactured. A train clatters past, loaded with propeller shafts, engine components, and pre-fitted bridge sections, all stamped Portland, Oakland, or Pittsburgh. Everything converges here, to this unlikely artery of the US war effort. At dusk, when the yard lights flicker on, the shipyard transforms into something almost spectral. Thousands of bulbs illuminate the cranes, catwalks, and hulls under construction. The entire desert glows silver and gold. The Americans call it the Steel Forest. Even the POWs, kept behind barbed wire enclosures at night, fall silent as they watch the spectacle. Sparks cascade in fountains of orange light, hissing like fireflies. The rhythmic pounding of pneumatic hammers echoes through the valley, the pulse of a nation in motion. Private Hans Becker, once a machinist from Bremen, whispers, "Sie machen es wie Spielzeug, aber groß." They build them like toys, but big. Lieutenant Faber gazes through the fence, feeling an unfamiliar weight in his chest. It isn't fear, it's realization. The Reichsradio had called Americans lazy, decadent, incapable of endurance. Yet here they were, turning a desert into a shipyard, and time into their greatest weapon. Nearby, a foreman calls out as another Victory ship, hull complete, engines installed, readies for transport downriver. Its name, painted in white letters, glows faintly under floodlights. SS Joseph Teal. Danner points toward the waterway where tugs wait to guide the vessel downstream. "From here," he says, "she goes to the Pacific, 15 days to San Pedro, then to Pearl Harbor, then maybe Leyte or Manila." Faber looks out across the current of the Colorado River, gleaming in the moonlight. The idea seems impossible, yet the proof is before him. He murmurs, almost to himself, hundreds of miles from the sea, and still they build a navy. For the first time, he feels something that no Allied gun or bomb had ever made him feel. defeat born not of battle, but of efficiency. April 22nd, 1944, POW camp near Parker Dam, Arizona. The camp is quiet except for the hum of the generators and the distant clang of the shipyard that never sleeps. Beyond the razor wire, the desert stretches into the dark, a vast sea of silence broken only by the pulsing glow from the steel forest on the horizon. Inside a wooden barrack, Lieutenant Otto Faber sits at a rough table, scribbling in a small journal issued by the US Army. His handwriting is neat, precise, the mark of a naval officer trained in discipline and detail. Tonight, his entry is not about battles fought, nor ships sunk, but what he has witnessed in this barren corner of the world. He writes in German. They build without pause. Night becomes day. Even the women weld and lift steel. America is not as we imagined. They are machines of flesh and will. Across from him, Hans Becker tunes a captured radio to a faint BBC broadcast. The static-filled voice reports Allied progress in Italy and the Pacific. For men who once believed in the inevitability of the Reich's victory, every word now feels like a nail in the coffin of illusion. Outside, Sergeant Cook walks the perimeter with his rifle slung over his shoulder. He pauses near the fence, lighting a cigarette, watching as the victory ship SS Helena Modjeska slowly moves down the slipway, her hull gleaming under floodlights. Even from here, the cheers of workers echo through the desert wind. Filipino welders, African-American riveters, Mexican pipe fitters, women in coveralls and kerchiefs. In less than a month, that ship will be halfway across the Pacific, supplying troops fighting in Saipan or New Guinea. The thought makes Cook smile. That's how we win, he mutters. The next morning, the POWs are marched along the riverbank for exercise. The Colorado glitters like a living vein of silver. American tugboats, small but powerful, push barges laden with fuel drums and ship components toward the next assembly site downriver. Faber stops walking for a moment, staring at the site. Das ist ihre Waffe, he whispers to Becker. This is their weapon, not the tanks or bombers, but the invisible engine of production, humming across a continent. He remembers Berlin's promise of the Wunderwaffe, miracle weapons that would turn the tide. But as he watches another Liberty ship rise from the desert, he realizes America's miracle is already here. Forged not in secret labs, but in factories and shipyards stretching from the Great Lakes to the Colorado River. That night, as he lies on his bunk, Faber cannot sleep. The rhythmic clang from the distant yard becomes a drumbeat in his mind, a sound not of war, but of inevitability. He whispers softly into the dark, if they can build ships here, then they can build anything, anywhere. He closes his eyes. For the first time since his capture, he feels the full weight of defeat, not just of armies, but of belief itself. May 3rd, 1944. Kaiser's Colorado River Yard, Arizona-California line. The morning begins with the sharp hiss of steam and the low groan of cranes moving steel. The desert air, already shimmering with heat, carries the scent of diesel and molten metal. As dawn breaks, the entire shipyard awakens in unison, a living organism of motion, rhythm, and purpose. Rows of women welders, their faces hidden behind tinted masks, crawl along the seams of massive hulls, their torches spitting arcs of blue-white light. Forklifts rumble down gravel lanes, hauling sections of pre-fitted decks. An overhead loudspeaker crackles. Attention, all shifts. Hull 422 moves to dry dock in 20 minutes. Repeat, 20 minutes. At the observation platform, Lieutenant Faber and a small group of POWs stand under guard. The US Army has allowed them limited labor assignments, mostly cleaning, sorting tools, and repairing transport crates. But what truly captivates them isn't the work itself. It's the spectacle of scale. The orchestration of thousands of workers moving with almost military precision. Faber studies the vast expanse of cranes and scaffolds. Nearby, he sees slogans painted across corrugated walls. Speed means victory, and build ships, beat Hitler. He murmurs, Unsere Fehler waren Stolz und Tradition. Our mistakes were pride and tradition. Engineer Ralph Danner, again supervising the worksite, overhears. "You know," he says, wiping his brow, "we used to think only the coast could build ships. But when Kaiser said, 'Why not the desert?' people thought he was crazy." He chuckles, shaking his head. Guess he was crazy enough to be right. Faber gives a small, almost respectful nod. He has begun to understand what this place represents. Not just industry, but imagination unchained by geography. From the riverbank, the Finnish Liberty ship, SS Henry Kaiser, is guided into the water by tugs, its hull cutting the current like a blade. American workers cheer, waving flags. The sound reverberates through the valley. To Faber, it's not triumphalism, it's conviction. These people are fighting a war not through conquest, but through construction. And in that, they've built something far more enduring than a fleet, a system. Later that day, inside the yard's small canteen, Sergeant Cook explains to one of the POWs how the process works. Every part comes from somewhere else. Pittsburgh steel, Michigan engines, California turbines. They meet here, in the middle of nowhere, and boom, a ship in 24 days. One of the German sailors, a young mechanic named Dieter, lowers his cup slowly. "Bei uns ein Jahr. Mindestens ein Jahr." For us, 1 year. At least one. Cook grins. "Well, that's the difference, son. We don't build ships. We build ways to build ships." Outside, dusk falls again over the Colorado. The floodlights come alive, transforming the yard into a luminous forest of iron and light. Cranes stretch like trees. Welding sparks drift upward like fireflies. To anyone arriving for the first time, it would look less like a factory and more like a vision. The industrial heart of a continent beating in the desert night. Faber watches in silence. In his journal that evening, he writes, "They have conquered distance itself. If the sea cannot reach them, they bring the sea to their door. Their strength lies not in their weapons, but in their will to organize chaos." The next day, his words would be quietly translated by an American intelligence officer assigned to monitor POW writings. That officer would later note, "German prisoners show signs of awe and resignation. The shipyards have done what no battlefield could. They've made them believe the war is already lost." And perhaps, in a way, it was. Because by the time Faber and his men were transferred east in late 1944, over 2,700 Liberty and Victory ships had been launched, many from places the ocean had never touched. The Colorado River's steel forest had proven something profound, that America's geography was no longer a limitation. It was a canvas, and across it, in sparks, smoke, and steel, the arsenal of democracy had painted its victory.